Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to Robert and something, something. Hooray! Drink up, buddy. Drink up. Have a little drink. Have a little drink. Come on, Chompy. Don't be a party pooper. Come on. Have a little drink. I find be that way more for me. Hold up. How long have you been there? What are you doing there? How'd you get in my house? And why aren't you wearing any pants? Huh? Speak up. I'm a year older. My ears don't work so well anymore. You're here to wish me a happy birthday? And you want to hear all about my all-time favorite metal bands? Why didn't you just say so? You didn't have to burst in here like that. You could have knocked on the door. You could have called. Could have sent a text or an email. You didn't have to sit in here for silence for God knows how long. You didn't have to break in here and take off your pants. Use your words, not whatever this is. Idiot. All right, I'll be right there. I'll be right there. I'll be right there. I'm almost there. I'm here. Hi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Metal Meltdown. It's true. This video is being released today on my birthday, November 22nd. And I've decided that to celebrate this momentous, legendary occasion that will be talked about for years and years to come, I'm just going to talk about my all-time favorite metal bands, because why the hell not? That is something people have asked about before, and I've kind of answered it through some live streams and such. But now I'm going to do it in a more official capacity because A, it's my birthday, duh, and B, because the year has kind of officially slowed down. There's really not a lot of new music coming out in these next couple of weeks that has my attention at all. So, yeah, let's kill some time and talk about some cool bands and stuff like that. Wow, that Jack and Coke is starting to hit me. I definitely think I might have put more Jack than I did Coke in it, but that's fine. It's my birthday. I think I'm allowed to cut loose a little bit, to get a little wild and freaky. So, yeah, my all-time favorite metal bands. No particular order. Let's say 10, top 10-ish, or just 10 awesome bands that we're going to talk about. Hell yeah. Let's start off with a band that everyone is familiar with, Metallica. American heavy metal, thrash metal, icons, pioneers, arguably the most well-known metal band ever. They are as synonymous with the genre as Black Sabbath, as Iron Maiden, as influential to the genre as those bands as well. One of the first albums I ever bought on CD was Master of Puppets. One of the first albums I ever bought on vinyl was And Justice for All. I have a soft spot for everything in their discography. I went absolutely ballistic seeing Metallica live back in 2016, and I was in the final row of like the nosebleeds in the Rogers Center, and I think I paid like $250 a pop for each ticket, like for me and my dad. I didn't care. He didn't care. We had a goddamn blast. Because I love Metallica. He loves Metallica. We love Metallica. Me and my dad don't have a lot of common anymore, but we do love our Metallica. And I don't even still love Metallica just as a fanboy. Like, I still think that Metallica's music, namely those first 5 albums, are among some of the most incredible and exciting heavy metal ever produced. Kill 'Em All is the most piss and vinegar, gnarly, pissed off fucking speed metal, thrash metal collection of ragers ever. It's just badass to this day. So many great songs, so many banging riffs. Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets elevated the style to new heights, new ambitions. They're more progressive, they're more epic, they're more brutal. And Justice for All I kind of flip-flopped on over the years because of the mix, namely because of how bass guitar was treated on that album. But at the end of the day, I think it has a really unique and a really satisfying sound. It's some of Metallica's most complex and technical arrangements to date. And even the Black Album, like, I love the Black Album. I don't fucking care. So what if it's fucking sellout, poser, mainstream, normie, hard rock metal garbage? You know, it's fucking good, man. The Black Album is so good, it has become like the model for how to create a rock or metal record. Like, there are so many bands that will make an album with the intention of it being their Black Album. And even though the rest of their discography isn't, in my opinion, amazing, it's still sprinkled with some amazing stuff. Like, there are songs on Load and Reload that I do think are legitimately really good. There are bits and pieces of Garage Inc. that I enjoy, bits and pieces of Death Magnetic and Hardwired to Self-Destruct that I enjoy. Hell, I'm one of the few people on this earth that actually will defend Lulu. Like, Metallica had the balls to do, like, a concept album based on a, like, German ballet opera that Lou Reed had written but never put together. And they did it with Lou Reed and went into weird, like, spoken word, art rock, avant-garde metal territory. What the fuck? And, well, I can't defend Saint Anger. That's not a great album, but I will defend Some Kind of Monster. In fact, I would argue that every young rock band should probably watch that movie and understand that there are consequences to the rock and roll lifestyle, to being in a band for over 20, 30 or so years. Yeah, I love Metallica. Warts and all. Bite me. I don't care. I love this band. I'll always love them. Another one of my all-time favorite bands, Mastodon, American sludge metal, progressive metal, heavy metal band responsible for records like Remission, Leviathan, Blood Mountain, Crack the Sky, The Hunter. I would argue a run almost as perfect as Metallica's first 5 albums, coincidentally. Leviathan and Crack the Sky in particular remain 2 of the greatest progressive metal records of all time. Blood Mountain is an amazing record as well. Remission's a great record as well. The Hunter is really interesting because I like how they kind of like stripped down but also expanded on their sound in a lot of interesting ways. It kind of feels like when Rush strayed away from doing concept albums, and that's the kind of approach that Mastodon took by writing more straightforward songs but throwing in all kinds of really progressive twists and having like individual stories that kind of existed in their own universe and felt like, you know, full-bodied and really expansive and powerful. And there were so many great songs in that album as a result. Bedazzled Fingernails, Stargasm, Curl the Burl, Black Tongue. Once More Around the Sun, I think, is a really good record too. Emperor of Sand, I'm not as into, but I thought that Mastodon redeemed themselves big time with Hushed and Grim. I think they're a great live band. I hear people saying that they're kind of inconsistent live, but every time I've seen them, they've kind of knocked it out of the park. First time I saw them was at the Rockstar Energy Drink Mayhem Festival in 2013 with like Rob Zombie, Amon Amarth, Machine Head, and a bunch of other bands. The second time I saw them, they were with Gojira and Kvelertak at the old Sound Academy, which is now called The Rebel. And the third time I saw them, they were opening for Judas Priest. I love all the harmonizing vocals and dynamics. I love how intricate the music is while still being like really accessible and really exciting, not too convoluted or too crazy or too overwhelming or whatever. Just an awesome fucking band, straight up. One of my all-time faves. Hence why they're here. Duh. Next up for me, the Dillinger Escape Plan. Holy shit, talk about a fucking perfect discography. Perfect. There's no arguing otherwise. It's just perfect. Even their worst album is better than most bands' best album. You know, like Calculating Infinity, Ironworks, Miss Machine, One of Us is the Killer, Irony is a Dead Scene, all of it. Just banger after motherfucking certified goddamn banger. The Dillinger Escape Plan were always pushing themselves technically, emotionally, conceptually, going into crazier territory, going into heavier territory. It was as chaotic and as crazed and as violent as like the best classic hardcore and metalcore and grindcore, but it also had genuine heart and it was really intelligent and it was really progressive and like cutthroat and really ambitious. Greg Puciato, honestly, one of my all-time favorite metal singers, one of the best metal frontmen of all time in my personal opinion. I really regret never having seen this band live when they were still active. There's a part of me where I'm like, I kind of want them to come back. I'm really selfish in that regard. I think that it's great that Dillinger Escape Plan acknowledged that they were done, that there was nothing else that they could do or that they wanted to do. So instead of beating the dead horse, they said, fuck it, we're done, bye, that's it. They did one more album, they did a couple more tours, and that was it. I respect that. I think a lot of bands could actually learn a lesson from the Dillinger Escape Plan. But also, I'm selfish, and I never saw them live. So just do one show. Next up, Napalm Death. I've talked a lot about Napalm Death here on the channel. It should not come as a surprise to anyone that they're one of my all-time favorite bands. I'll say it again, though. Why not? Since we're here, that's the point of this video. They're one of my all-time favorite bands. Early records like Scum, From Enslavement to Obliteration, you know, they just kind of like ignite something in me. Like they speak to that pissed off little snot-nosed punky brat teenager that I absolutely was when I was like 15, 16 years old. There's a lot of what they talk about on that album politically and socially that I think is still really relevant to this day. Absolute masterpieces of grindcore, in my opinion, warts and all. I also love Harmony Corruption and Utopia Banish, which, you know, helped to establish death grind as a genre. Napalm Death bringing some death metal into their sound and also introducing us to Barney Greenway, another one of my all-time favorite metal singers and frontmen. That dude's an absolute fucking sweetheart. I've seen Napalm Death many, many times, and every time I see them, I try to take the opportunity to speak to Barney, and you know, he's just the fucking best. There was one particular occasion in 2015, I think it was. I remember it was a very cold day here in Toronto. They were on tour with Voivod, Iron Regan Exhumed, and the show was at the Opera House. And I was in college at George Brown, and I left class early because I thought I had to be there. I had to be at the show early. I had to get in line early, only to discover I was first in line in the middle of a fucking blizzard. And, you know, I was like 3 hours early. The staff at the venue noticed me. They say, "Hey man, just come inside." Like, they don't even scan my ticket. They're like, you know, you're good, bro. Anyone who's standing outside in this fucking weather for Napalm Death, you're cool by us. So I just hung out in the venue for a bit, you know, away from the cold. I got to see Napalm Death set up and rehearse and jam. At the end of the night, you know, they brought me up on stage and they were like, you know, this kid's a fucking badass. He stood out in the fucking snow. They gave me a set list, which I think I've lost since then, if we're being honest. I did get my photo taken with Barney. If I find it before this video gets edited and put online, then I'll slap it right here, I guess. I saw them another time with Cannibal Corpse, another time with Gwar. They were fucking awesome. Their discography is wildly consistent, especially from like the early 2000s onwards. Like I would even go as far as to argue that more recent records like, you know, Throes of Joy and the Jaws of Defeatism, and even the mini album EP thing they put out earlier this year, Resentment is Always Seismic, or whatever the fuck it was called. I would argue that those are on par and maybe in some ways better than older records like Scum and From Enslavement to Obliteration and Harmony Corruption and so on and so forth. Utilitarian is great too. Code Red and fucking like Apex Predator Easy Meat, Uncommon Codes and More Uncommon Slurs. Yeah, I feel genuinely bad for the person that doesn't like Napalm Death. I fucking love them. I love them. Next up, Carcass. I know, shocker, right? I talk about Carcass all the goddamn time on this channel. You want to know why I do that? Because I love Carcass. That's why. I love this band. In my opinion, another near-perfect discography. They have consistently defined the evolution of extreme metal. In fact, they really played a massive part in defining specifically so many little subsections of extreme metal, like Reek of Putrefaction, Symphonies of Sickness, instrumental to the foundation of grindcore and more specifically gore grind. Necroticism, massively influential to the 90s old school death metal scene. Heartwork, massively influential to melodic death metal. Swan Song, warts and all, was a big part of the death and roll movement in the mid-90s. And once Surgical Steel dropped, I don't know about y'all, but I noticed a bunch of other older mellow death and like classic death metal bands reuniting and trying to get some classic shit together. Like, Surgical Steel absolutely paves the way for At the Gates to finally drop at War with Reality in 2014. I've unfortunately only seen Carcass once. It was with the Black Dahlia Murder, rest in peace Trevor, Gorguts and Noisem, once again at the aforementioned Opera House. This was in 2014. I think I even skipped school to go to this. I think I was in I was supposed to go to some kind of baking class or whatever. It was like part of the final exam. So yeah, not my brightest move in retrospect, but I did it. What's done is done. I have a badass Reek of Putrefaction flag as a result, and a picture disc of Surgical Steel as a result. Speaking of which, this is another band where I own every single fucking album. Some of you may remember that I even have the Torn Arteries dinnerware set. This is 100% real and 100% beautiful and 100% mine. Honestly, just like Napalm Death, I'm kind of just like, if you don't like Carcass, I kind of feel bad for you on some level. This band is just that fucking good. They've made so many motherfucking bangers. They're just, mwah, chef's kiss. So beautiful. So wonderful. Next up, At the Gates. I know, right? This is also probably very shocking because Robert never talks about At the Gates on the Metal fucking Meltdown. There are few albums on this earth that can inspire me to just go absolutely ballistic in the way that Slaughter of the Soul can. That album is, in my opinion, 110% perfect. Everything, the songwriting, the riffs, the production, the vocals, the passion, the energy, ungoddamn matched. I don't expect everyone to love Slaughter of the Soul as much as I do, but honestly, real talk, if you can't jam to at least a few of the numbers on this thing, if your head ain't banging when Thomas yells out fucking go, you suck. You don't know how to have fun. You gotta stick up your ass or something. And honestly, the rest of their discography is great too. Like, a lot of people dismiss a lot of their other stuff because it's not Slaughter of the Soul, but there's a lot of great stuff. Like, The Red in the Sky is Ours is an awesome record. So is Terminal Spirit Disease. And honestly, so is a lot of the stuff that At the Gates has released since they reunited. Like, I really liked At War with Reality. I really liked The Nightmare of Being. They did a split with Voivod that I thought was really good too. And they've been consistently great live. I saw them once with Converge and Pallbearer, another time opening for a Monomorph and Arch Enemy, and earlier this year again with Municipal Waste. At the Gates are honestly one of the few 90s death metal bands that really has gotten better and better and better with age. They're consistent, they still sound great, and I look forward to whatever it is they do next. Next up, Behemoth. Oh boy. Look, Nurgle is a silly, cringy, goofy man, but that aside, Behemoth remains one of my all-time favorite fucking bands. Records like Evangelion, Zoskia Cultus, Profanatica, Demigod, and so many more are some of the most brutal and punishing blackened death metal ever made. Nurgle sounds like an absolute monster half the time on vocals. The percussion, the guitars, everything is just so gnarly and evil and disgusting. And while many have criticized the more modern output of the 2010s, The Satanist and I Loved You at Your Darkest, honestly, they are instrumental to getting me really interested in black metal. Like, I remember when The Satanist came out in 2014. I remember, like, listening to that thing for the first time and just being astounded by, like, the apocalyptic scope of Blow Your Trumpets, Gabriel, the ritualistic howling and anguish of O Father, O Satan, O Son, the menacing anthemic blackened death metal of the album's title track, the punishing grooves and percussive beatdowns of Ora Pro Nubis Lucifer. Nurgle was battling death and was forced to confront his own mortality. He came out of it invigorated, with a new sense of purpose and life, with a new look on God and heaven and hell and Satan, a new perspective. And he used all of that to fuel what is probably one of the greatest blackened death metal records ever made, if not the greatest blackened death metal record ever made. And honestly, I thought I Loved You at Your Darkest was just as good, and in some ways maybe even better. And these guys are amazing live, and they've been getting better and better as they've continued to get bigger and bigger too. First time I saw them, they were with Cannibal Corpse, and I thought they were fine. Second time I saw them, they were with Mirror, and I thought they were incredible. The last two times I saw them opening for Slayer and Slipknot, and they fucking brought the goddamn house down. They were arguably better than Slayer and Slipknot. So yeah, you know, me and Nurgle are not going to see eye to eye on a lot of things, and I'm definitely going to tell him to shut the fuck up when I think that he needs to shut the fuck up, but goddamn, Behemoth rules. Goddamn, they make jams. All right, next up, Voivod, French-Canadian thrash, progressive, avant-garde metal band. These guys are weird, wacky, insane, over the top, and I love them all to pieces. I love going through their discography because they start off as a pretty straightforward kind of speed metal, thrash metal band, And then, things start to get weirder, tighter, more technical, more intense, leading up to Killing Technology, which just sounds like a whirlwind of razor blades. And then you get to stuff like Nothing Face and Dimension Hatros, which are just full-on prog metal. And then you get to stuff like Angel Rat, which are somehow, it's somehow even fucking weirder. Jason Newsted joins the band for the bit, and they have a bit of their like dad rock phase, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. But honestly, they've been on a roll in the 2010s. Like, I fucking loved The Wake. I really loved their last album, Synchro Anarchy, as well. They've done some EPs and splits in that time too that I thought were fantastic. They've been great live. I've seen them multiple times. I've actually mentioned a few of the times that I've seen them already here. There was one time I saw them with Yob at the Phoenix Theater, and that time Voivod was in town signing records at Cops Records beforehand, and I got a bunch of classic records as well as The Wake signed on vinyl. Everything from Snake's very over-the-top and like paranoid, almost alien-like vocals to the very intricate and janky guitar work. It's all just fantastic. I love everything about the vibe and the aesthetic of Voivod. Not just an amazing thrash or prog metal band, just one of the best Canadian rocker metal bands ever of all time. Speaking of badass French-Canadian weirdness, let's talk about Gorguts. Holy shit. This is another band that, just like Voivod, as you go through the discography, they get consistently so much fucking weirder, except they get so much weirder, so much more quickly, and so much more bizarrely. I'm not sure what the proper terminology I'm looking for would be here. Like, they start off with some pretty straightforward death metal on Considered Dead. A great record, mind you, just really grim, gnarly, grisly, cavernous, old-school death metal. And they start getting a little bit more intricate and a little bit more spooky on, the following record. The name is escaping me at the moment. And then we get to Obscura, which is just, it breaks the rules of music. Like, there's so much about that album that shouldn't work. There's so many time signatures that don't make fucking sense. So many patterns and textures and chord progressions that don't make any fucking sense. It's weird and all over the place and convoluted, and it's just, like, from a songwriting perspective, objectively kind of ugly. It's not very well polished, and like, it's not like there are any big, bright, bubbly hooks or choruses or anything like that, even by the standards of metal. There are no sizzling guitar solos. This isn't like, you don't get a bunch of like Judas Priest twin guitar wizardry or some epic Iron Maiden gallops. It's just pure madness and mind-melting insanity. And that's exactly why I love it. Like, I love Obscura. I can listen to that album forever. There's no other album that fundamentally destroys the rules of music the way that it does and is still really fascinating and listenable. From Wisdom to Hate was great as well. Colored Sands kind of brought Gorguts back into more progressive metal while combining the crazier elements of Obscura. I really liked some of the darker, almost sludgier kind of black metal elements of that thing. I love the Pleiades Dust EP as well. Gorguts, from what I understand, is working on another brand new album right now. I have no idea how much, if any, progress they've made on it. I do know I want to get Luke LeMay here on the Metal Meltdown, and I do know that I want to talk about with him as soon as I can. I'll even just to have him here on general would be kind of a dream come true, honestly, because I love fucking Gorguts. This is another band where I own every single fucking album, and I'll play all of them any day of the fucking week because I fucking love Gorguts. And finally, let's wrap this up with a not so surprising, but despite that probably controversial choice, Deafheaven. Modern post-black metal icons, black gaze crew, probably one of the most polarizing metal bands of the 2010s. Their fusion of post-metal and black metal and shoegaze has drawn just as much ire and hatred as it has genuine praise. Much like the Satanist from Behemoth, Sunbather is very much responsible for kind of helping me to get really excited and interested in black metal. Like, that album, I honestly still don't think there's a lot of other black gaze that's like it. Like, it took everything that was so beautiful about what Alcest was doing at the time and Lantlos and other black gaze bands, and it just elevated it to new emotional heights. It felt so much more vulnerable, so much more powerful, so much more evocative. It was also way more accessible. Like, it was a black metal album that I feel like a more casual listener can approach and get a lot out of. And I definitely think that's a massive part as to why that was such a massive success for the band. I've loved everything else they've done too, like New Bermuda. Ordinary Corrupt Human Love took a little bit of time to kind of grow on me, but you know, now it has, and I love it too. I think I would actually say that I love it as much as Sunbather. The 10 Years Gone live album as well. I mean, I think that's one of the best live albums ever fucking made, in my opinion, in any genre. And while I initially dismissed Infinite Granite as being subpar, boilerplate, shoegaze, and post-rock, I've come to really admire a lot of what that album does with time, much like Ordinary Corrupt Human Love. Plus, honestly, of all the bands we've talked about in this video, Deafheaven is the best live. Like, it's not even up for debate. I saw them in 2019 at the Decibel Beer and Metal Festival in Philadelphia. And, you know, they were kind of the odd ones out. Like, there were a bunch of heavy bands that day, like, or that entire festival. You know, you had Enslaved doing Frost in its entirety. You had Triptychon there. You had Obituary doing Cause of Death in its entirety. And I think they knew that they were the odd ones out, so they pulled out a lot of the heavier and the more aggressive stuff, like Black Brick, for instance, which is just a standalone single. But irregardless, they just knocked it out of the goddamn park. They were fucking incredible. One of the most, like, emotionally charged performances I've ever seen. I understand there are lots of people that still just despise Deafheaven, and, you know, by all means, more power to you, but I think you're missing out, man. And cool. Maybe some honorable mentions, bands that I love, but we just, you know, it's a top 10, so that's just kind of how it works. You can't have 14 or 15 bands if it's a top 10 list. So, yeah. Enslaved. I fucking love Enslaved. Baroness, super consistent, super awesome discography. Protest the Hero, another badass Canadian progressive metal band. Revocation, one of the best modern death or thrash metal bands out there, in my opinion. Honestly, Code Orange too, come to think of it. Like, they kind of like really opened my eyes to the power and the might of metalcore. Who else? Maybe the Black Dahlia Murder, honestly. I mean, they've just made so many fucking great albums. Yeah, I think that'll do it. I think that's good. Thank you for joining me here today. Thank you for letting me do something a little different and just letting me talk about some of my favorite fucking bands. Stay tuned, because we're very likely going to be doing the more typical end of the year content starting very soon. For instance, Chompy and Anna will have their top 10 best metal albums of the year video thing. I will obviously have my top 10 best metal albums of the year thing. We're going to do top 10 best non-metal albums as well. And of course, the thing that everyone looks forward to every year, whether they want to admit it or not, the top 5 worst metal albums. You know you're pumped for it. Don't even fucking lie. I have the numbers to prove it. So, yeah. Thank you. Have a fantastic day. And don't forget to wish my lovely wife, Anna, a happy birthday as well, because the day is my birthday, but by sheer coincidence, hers is the 23rd. So everyone please wish Anna a very happy birthday. Happy birthday, Anna! You're very welcome. I love you. What are your favorite metal bands of all time?
Megadeth.
Megadeth. That's a great choice. Honorable mention Megadeth for me. What else?
Dio solo stuff.
Dio. Also great.
Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. Oh, fuck. And all right, another honorable mention for me. Black Sabbath. Let's throw in Iron Maiden and Judas Priest while we're at it as well. There's a lot of great bands out there. All right, booyah. I think we're done here then. Press this button to subscribe. Look, there's more videos here. Thank you for watching, and you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.